The events of recent weeks have made one thing abundantly clear. Cultivating strong partnerships with our neighbors in the Western Hemisphere is more crucial than ever. As the ranking member of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Western Hemisphere, I am particularly interested in how we can coordinate the U.S. military's presence with our diplomatic and homeland security efforts. Hard power and soft power are complementary tools. During a trying time for peace and national security, we must ensure the Department of Defense, the Department of State, and the Department of Homeland Security cooperate effectively. Our diplomats, our law enforcement, and our warriors should be working hand in glove to build friendships and deter enemies with all tools at our disposal. Unfortunately, it's clear that President Biden either doesn't understand this or is ignoring the challenges facing us in the Western Hemisphere. The Biden administration is currently negotiating with the murderous Maduro regime to lift oil sanctions on Venezuela. This catastrophic idea reflects a naivete that dictators can be wooed or somehow appeased into acting in the interest of the United States. The actions of Vladimir Putin clearly illustrate that dictators cannot be appeased and do not work for the good of the global community. Venezuela has long been allied with the Kremlin, of course Havana, and now Beijing. We shouldn't signal to our friends in South America that you can violate human rights, imprison American citizens if you sell us your oil. That's why I've just introduced a new bill today banning not only purchases from Russia, but Venezuela and Iran. We need to produce more energy here in America, not buy it from our adversaries. That is a national security imperative. We need to produce it right here for another reason. We're the most environmentally safe producers of oil. Why not produce it here instead of asking people to produce it elsewhere? They're still on the same planet and the impact to the globe is the same. Doing so is, as I said, a national security imperative. Changing the subject though, Cubazuela, and I say that specifically and purposefully, Cubazuela is metastasizing throughout Latin America. Authoritarians tend to link themselves to other authoritarians like Russia and China, Nicaragua, Peru, Venezuela, the dominoes are falling. And it appears we're facing a new entity, this narco-terrorist state where authoritarian governments are partnering with transnational criminal organizations to basically create a formidable alliance that crosses departments from state, homeland, and DOD. And I want to hear, and my first question centers around this, how is DOD working with homeland and state to address this new sort of entity? And I guess it's not really new, but how Cuba and Venezuela and the drug organizations are working, partnering with Bolivia and other countries' militaries. How are we working together in some task force mechanism strategically to address that? And that's my first question, and perhaps start with the Southcom commander.
So in terms of in the Western Hemisphere and with our Department of State colleagues in the Western Hem, and quite honestly, none of us have the resources to counter our competitors, and so it forces us to work extremely well and extremely close together. I will say that having our ambassadors in place in this region is really, really important. And what we've started back up in Southcom is, and we've been able to brief up 4 ambassadors as they stop to Southcom before they go into the AOR and assume their position. So we start that relationship very, very quickly. But it takes all of us, and that's why I say integrated deterrence is very prevalent in our AOR already, because we all bring allies and partners. We have UK, Canada, the Netherlands, France, all within my AOR as well. But it requires all of us to work very closely together.
It would be helpful, and perhaps I've heard resources every time I've been in the room, and I know you mentioned it too, sir. If you guys could send our office a list, just these are the top 20 things we have to have. I mean, that would be very helpful. And I know I may have missed testimony earlier where that was, had to go talk about China and another meeting on foreign affairs. So, but it would be great to get that list. You know, Congressman Green, these are the top 10 or 15 or 20 things we have to have. Because I don't want you saying we don't have the resources, right? I mean, that just bothers me. That's a failure of this side of the this branch of government to get you what you need. I appreciate the AMBO mention there. Unfortunately, that's the other side of the building, and we'll push those guys to get people, through the NOM process, and because I understand Panama and some of these countries haven't had ambassadors for a very long time, and that's unfortunate and shouldn't happen. So we'll push that. But a resources list would be great, and with that, I yield.